wrote about Trump in your book, National Populism. And now just zooming out again to the global level, obviously the presidential election coming up in the States. What's your take in the similarities with what's going on in Europe, what's going on here in Britain, to what's going on in America? What does a Trump presidency look like for the world? What is this the same thing? Is it issues of immigration, patriotism? It's the same failures of the elites over there. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I read an interesting piece, I think it was in The Atlantic by Anne Applebaum, saying, don't draw parallels between Europe and Trump, as in, the rise of populism in Europe doesn't necessarily mean that Trump's going to play well in America. I personally think that's kind of another example of liberal elites keeping their heads in the sand. I mean, clearly the populist mood is back. Clearly, the populist moment is back. And if you look at all the polling in the US, as we sit here talking in the early summer of 24, Trump's ahead in the national polls, but he's ahead in every single battleground state. Only 24% of Americans think the country's heading in the right direction. Biden's approval ratings are pretty weak. Trump is looking stronger than he was in 2016. Will he win? I don't know. My gut instinct is probably he will, and if he does, it will be because of the chaos on the southern border. The numbers there are bananas, 200 to 300,000 people crossing in one recent month. The economy is okay, but it's not doing gangbusters, and there's a lot of concern about America's the threats to America from abroad. It doesn't, and the collapse of the cities inside the country and so on, and the sense of disorder and chaos. Trump, I think, plays well for all of that. Biden is weak, visibly, physically, intellectually. And if Trump does end up winning, we'll see, I think, a stronger push on economic protectionism, the kind of patriotic protectionism, what he's calling it, more reshoring, tougher lines against China, trying to revive American industry. You'll see the border security issue be prioritized. You'll see issues around migration and crime be prioritized. How he handles the state, I think, will be very different from the first time. If he's learned his lesson and he listens to some of the think tanks around him, he will be saying, okay, actually what I need to do is not just take the White House, but I need to have good, 500 to 1,000 appointments of ideologically aligned people in key positions within the state to ensure I can get done what I need to get done. Now, if he can do that, then obviously it will be a more effective presidency than the first one. But I think he's got a good chance. Generally speaking, if you pan out and you look at 24, you look at France, you look at the rest of Europe, you look at where Britain is, you look at where the polling is in America, the big message for me is nearly 10 years on from 2016, these populist movements are as strong, if not stronger, than they were nearly a decade ago. And millions of voters are saying to the elites, once again, listen, you either address my concerns or I'm going to keep sending these guys into office and I'm going to keep sending these guys into political power. So again, it comes back to the elites. And you know this from your debate at the Oxford Union. I watched that debate. I watched Nancy Pelosi shouting you down. It was a symbol of everything that is wrong with the elite class. I remember Andrew Sullivan writing, what you have to remember is we're living through the greatest radicalization of the elite class in recent history, since at least the 1960s. And he was on the money. That is what we're living through. And if you just view our world and society through that lens, rather than the evil, ignorant, misinformed, disinformed voters, if you look at it through the lens of the radicalization of the elite class, not just in politics, but media, culture, creatives, publishing, it just makes a lot more sense. And that's how I view the world today.